Sorry, Manuel. I have just conversation with the journalist. Can I be back in some minutes, in 15, 20 minutes? Yeah, please. Thank you, Manuel. Окей, great, bye-bye. Я тільки що розмовляв з президентом Макроном, з Еммануелем. Ми з ним часто дуже спілкуємось раз на день. Я б так сказав. Ну, в середньому, і дійсно у нас дуже тісні відносини між нашими країнами. Він сильно допомагає. Я йому за це вдячний. Я йому після нашої розмови я йому передзвоню.
This is my video update on this Thursday midday, March the 20th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the clown world. Elensky speaking to the media, talking to journalists, and as he was being asked a question by a journalist, his mobile phone rings, and wouldn't you know it, it's Emmanuel Macron. Oh my God. The script writing is getting really bad. It is getting really, really bad. So yeah, he's speaking to journalists, and Macron just happens to call him. And Zelensky has to tell Macron that he's in the middle of a press conference. He's talking to journalists. So I'm going to get back to you, Emmanuel, in about 20 minutes. Is that all right? Yeah, that's all right. Okay. Talk to you later. Hello, Emmanuel. It's good to hear from you. Listen, I'm speaking with a journalist right now. What? Next week, me, you, Bridget, play piano. Can Podolyak come? Podolyak, you want to go to Paris and join me and Emmanuel and Bridget so we can play piano together? You know, Emmanuel, Podolyak, no, he not come. But I come. Okay, Emmanuel, listen, I call you back in 20 minutes and we go over details of trip to Paris. Okay, bye-bye. Oh my God, he says that he speaks to Macron. What did he say, once a day or something like that? The end is near. The end is near, I'm telling you. When the script writing gets this bad, that's how you know the end is near. Anyway, let's get to some serious news. And let's start things off with Turkey. What is happening in Turkey? We had an arrest. We had an arrest of the mayor of Istanbul, who is going to be in the next elections Erdogan's main rival. He was arrested yesterday on corruption. Come on, mobile phone. Okay, here we go. He was arrested on corruption. Allegedly, he was working with or had links to the PKK, which Turkey considers to be a terrorist organization, the Kurdish PKK. And he was going to be running for president in 2028, and he was expected to win. He was expected to beat Erdogan, the AKP party. He's with the CHP. His name is Imamoglu. I think I'm pronouncing that correct. I'm not sure. Imamoglu. But yeah, he was arrested yesterday along with 100 of his allies, people who support him. And there were mass protests in Istanbul the Erdogan government, they are now saying, well, they've put Istanbul on a lockdown, pretty much. No demonstrations, no protests for 4 days. Social media has been completely locked down. No social media or anything like that. And this is a huge deal. It's a very big deal. It's interesting because Erdogan, from what I understand, unless the constitution's changed, unless something happens in the Turkish constitution, I don't think he can run again for president. But I imagine they're going to amend the constitution. He's going to amend the constitution. But man, Erdogan he's getting old, and he looks, with every day that passes, he looks more and more fragile, Erdogan. But it looks like he's removing his main competition, or at least the AKP party is removing their main competition. Huge protests, though, in Istanbul. People are very, very upset. It looks like Erdogan may have finally taken things too far. That's how it looks. The Turkish lira under a lot of pressure. Erdogan rival arrested days before becoming presidential candidate. Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu has been detained on charges of corruption and alleged terror links, with his party calling it a coup. This really reminds me of Ionescu in Romania, doesn't it? So İmamoğlu, he was going to submit, from what I understand, he was going to submit his candidacy, and then the electoral board or the courts, they claimed that his diploma, his university degree, was not valid. And in Turkey, if you don't have a degree, then you're not allowed to run for president. And so they got him with that, and then they just arrested the guy. Reminds me of Romania, Ionescu. It looks like Turkey is more like like the EU than we thought, I guess. Or exactly like the EU, right? The EU cancels elections in Romania with Ionescu. Erdogan, following up on Ursula's lead, decides to do the same in Turkey. This one's going to get Erdogan. I have a feeling that this is going to get him, or it's going to take him to the brink. I think he stepped way too far. He went too far on this one. So that's the big news coming out of Turkey. We will see what happens, how this develops. Erdogan is a survivor. I'll give him that. You think he's about to be removed? He ends up surviving. So let's talk about the phone call between Trump and the Green Goblin. Let's go back to the Green Goblin. So Elensky and Trump, they spoke on the phone for about an hour, and Trump briefed Elensky on the phone call that he had with Putin. And we got a readout courtesy of Waltz and Rubio, which I find interesting. The readout was on the White House website. You know, the Trump-Putin phone call, the readout was not published on the White House website. It was immediately published by Levitt on her X account, but it's not on the White House website, that readout. And this readout between Elensky and Trump was not on Levitt's X X account. It was not published on X, and it went to the White House website, and it was a statement from Rubio and Waltz. They're the ones that published this statement and this readout. And so let me find it here and read you the important parts. I will say this. The Truth Social post from Trump on this call was very short. It was a short post on Truth Social, and I just got the impression after as I was reading Trump's Truth Social post that it was pretty much Trump telling Elensky, this is how the United States and Russia are going to take this forward, and don't cause any trouble for us. That was pretty much the the sense that I got from reading Trump's Truth Social post on the phone call. I don't know if I actually have that Truth Social bookmarked. If you give me 1 second, maybe I do have it bookmarked somewhere. Here we go. Just completed a very good telephone call with Elensky of Ukraine. It lasted approximately an hour. Much of the discussion was based on the call made yesterday with President Putin in order to align both Russia and Ukraine in terms of their requests and needs. We are very much on track, and I will ask Secretary of State Rubio and National Security Advisor Waltz to give an accurate description of the points discussed. The statement will be put out shortly. He doesn't seem like he cares too much, Trump, about the call with Zelensky. We're in bilateral talks, the U.S. and Russia. So Zelensky, just don't mess things up for us, right? Just sit there in the corner, quiet, do as we tell you. Don't mess things up for us. Anyway, let's get to the readout, to the important parts of the readout, as published by Rubio and Waltz. President Zelensky thanked President Trump for the support of the United States, especially the Javelin missiles that President Trump was first to provide, and his efforts towards peace. Those Javelin missiles are like the wonderful, beautiful jab that Trump just could not let go of. He could not let go of warp speed and then the jab. He can't let go of the Javelin missiles. What else does this readout say? Here's the important part of this readout. It's not a very, very long readout, but let me read you the important part. President Trump fully briefed President Zelensky on his conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin and the key issues discussed. They reviewed the situation in Kursk and agreed to share information closely between their defense staffs as the battlefield situation evolved. President Zelensky asked for additional air defense systems to protect his civilians, particularly Patriot missile systems. President Trump agreed to work with him to find what was available, particularly in Europe. The U.S. is not going to give Patriot systems to Ukraine. They make the Patriot systems. That's their system. They're not going to help Ukraine out. What Trump is going to do, he's going to see if Europe has any Patriot systems lying around. Not good for Elensky. Not good at all. Also interesting, the part about reviewing the situation in Kursk. Yesterday, Trump said that there are 2,500 Ukrainian soldiers surrounded in Kursk. I believe he said nicely surrounded or something like that in his statement yesterday. Anyway, I forgot what he said, but it was a pretty strange way to phrase soldiers surrounded in Kursk. But yeah, he's going to ask Europe if they have any Patriot systems. You guys make the Patriot systems. If anyone has Patriot systems, it's the United States, but the United States is not going to give Ukraine any Patriot systems. The two leaders also agreed on a partial ceasefire against energy. Technical teams will meet in Saudi Arabia in the coming days to discuss broadening the ceasefire to the Black Sea on the way to a full ceasefire. They agreed this could be the first step toward the full end of the war and ensuring security. And ensuring security. President Zelensky was grateful for the president's leadership in this effort and reiterated his willingness to adopt a full ceasefire. President Trump also discussed Ukraine's electrical supply and nuclear power plants. He said that the United States could be very helpful in running those plants with its electricity and utility expertise. American ownership of those plants would be the best protection for that infrastructure and support for Ukrainian energy infrastructure. So we got additional statements from the White House, which said that that they would like Ukraine to hand over their power plants, their energy infrastructure, and even the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, of which Russia controls. and the White House knows Russia controls the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, and they're telling Elensky, give over Ukraine's energy infrastructure and we'll help protect it. This is like this is rare earth minerals part 2, right? Obviously, this is nonsense coming out of the Trump White House. Obviously, they're messing around, toying around with Zelensky. That's clear. Absolutely clear. Why would they ask for the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant knowing that Russia's in full control of the ZNPP? Everyone knows that Russia's in full control of the ZNPP. Everyone knows that Zaporozhye, according to Putin's June 2024 terms, that Zaporozhye is part of the Russian Federation, according to their constitution. And the terms from June 2024 say that Ukraine needs to leave Zaporozhye and Kherson, all of the oblasts of which the ZNPP is located. And here's Trump telling Elensky, give over the ZNPP, we'll protect it. I mean, come on, give over your power plants, your energy infrastructure, we'll take care of it. Rare earth minerals, part 2. He's messing around with Zelensky. He's toying around with Zelensky. They're stringing him along. They're jerking him around. I don't know, however you want to describe it. Obviously, Ukraine can't give up their energy infrastructure. Everyone knows that. Not looking good for the Green Goblin. The UK, they put out a statement saying that they're not going to stop military aid to Ukraine. From Bloomberg, UK rejects Putin's demand to suspend military aid to Ukraine. Well, when did Russia ask the UK? When did Russia ask the UK? When did they negotiate anything with the UK when it comes to Project Ukraine? And Kaja Kallas, stunning and brave, also said the EU will not accept Putin's demand to stop arms deliveries. Yeah, these the EU and the UK, they're living in a parallel universe. I'm telling you, they're just making stuff up. They believe that they're actually involved in this negotiation process. It's delusional, man. Absolutely delusional. This is a bilateral negotiation between the United States and Russia. That's it. It's that simple. The U.S. and Russia, a U.S. proxy war against Russia, and the U.S. and Russia, they're going to negotiate this out. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe negotiations break down. But they're also normalizing their relations. So even if they can't figure out Ukraine, at least the United States and Russia are starting to talk, and they're figuring things out on various issues, or they're trying to figure things out on various issues. Medvedev said the Kiev regime cannot be trusted with regard to the ceasefire agreement. The most important thing is that the Americans do the job they have to do. Let's see what they do. Yeah, there's no Minsk 3. Forget about Minsk 3. Russia has clearly shown that it will not fall for any Minsk 3 or any stuff like that. And this is a correct statement from Medvedev. Let's see what the US does. Let's look at their actions. And let's see what Ukraine does. If Ukraine decides to hit at energy infrastructure in Russia, well, then that's going to look bad for Ukraine. It's going to look very bad for the Elensky regime. And they have broken the energy infrastructure ceasefire. At least we're getting reports that Ukraine has already broken that ceasefire, but it's still early. Let's give it another week or two and see if they try to break that energy infrastructure ceasefire. I expect them to try and break it. I expect them to break it, actually. In which case, for Russia, they're going to go to Trump. They're going to go to the US and say, you see, they broke the energy infrastructure ceasefire. So we're now able to launch attacks into their energy infrastructure, and that'll be that. And the US and Russia will continue to negotiate. Even if the energy infrastructure 30-day pause breaks down, the US and Russia will continue to try and negotiate this thing out. Peskov, he said that Putin and Trump trust each other. Following the president's phone call on Tuesday, spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that further contacts will be arranged in short order. Speaking to Russian media on Wednesday, Peskov stated, I can say with a high degree of confidence that President Putin and Trump understand each other well, trust each other, and intend to proceed step by step along the path of normalizing Russian-U.S. relations. Mike Waltz also said that he spoke to Ushakov, and they are preparing the teams who will be meeting over the weekend to go over the more technical details of the 30-day ceasefire and the Black Sea, perhaps a Black Sea ceasefire and everything else, and the terms as dictated by Russia. So they're going to get the technical teams together, and I'm sure the Russian side is going to go over Istanbul Plus, June 2024 root causes, and they're going to brief the Americans on all of the terms and what needs to be done. That's what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. As Elensky thinks about giving over rare earth and energy infrastructure and stuff like that, as Zelensky is trying to figure all of this out, the technical teams between the United States and Russia are going to be getting into the details of a possible ceasefire, possible peace agreement. This could be a nice home. This has potential, but it needs a lot of work. So Trump gave an interview to the Washington Examiner, and he revealed that he's had many calls with Putin. Trump reveals he had other calls with Putin. Those conversations with the Russian leader have not been made public, according to the US president. I think it is the beginning of something good. The beginning really took place 3 or 4 weeks ago. You know, I have spoken to Putin over. This is not just a call that began it. We have had other calls, he claimed. Trump insisted that his agreement with Putin during Tuesday's call for Russia and Ukraine to refrain from striking each other's energy infrastructure for 30 days is a big thing. Yeah, man. Russia gave Trump a good talking point that he can take to the media, an important talking point that he can take to the media. I actually got some sort of a ceasefire. You see, I got an energy ceasefire. So they gave Trump a good media talking point. Serbia, let's talk about what's going on in Serbia. And we have the Prime Minister of Serbia. I want to toss this. We had the Prime Minister of Serbia who resigned in January over the collapse of the canopy in Novi Sad. And he resigned back in January, but the parliament the other day approved his resignation. So now that triggers a process where either a government is formed in 30 days, a new government is formed in 30 days, a new prime minister, or you could get possible snap elections. So according to Reuters, Serbia's PM Vučević formally resigned, triggering 30-day deadline for new government. Serbia's parliament formally accepted the resignation of the Prime Minister Milos Vučević on Wednesday, triggering a 30-day deadline for the formation of a new government or the calling of a snap election. Vučević, the head of the ruling Serbian Progressive Party, the SNS, and an ally of the populist president Vučić, resigned on January 28th amid protests sparked by the collapse of an awning at a train station at the northern city of Novi Sad last November, in which 15 people died. Under the constitution, President Vučić now has 30 days to propose a new prime minister designate to lead the government until 2027, when both parliamentary and presidential elections are scheduled. So if no government is formed, you could get snap elections, and those snap elections could take place as soon as June this year. So that's the situation in Serbia. And in The Hill, the DC Insider media publication, The Hill, we had a very interesting article, an opinion piece. I guess you could call it an opinion piece. The Hill, they are revealing that Trump was right about Ukraine. That is what they are revealing. Sadly, Trump is right on Ukraine. By Alan J. Kupperman, opinion contributor. Yeah, so this article from The Hill goes over the history of Project Ukraine, going all the way back to the Maidan, and they admit that Maidan was indeed a coup. They also talk about the Minsk agreements, and they admit that the Minsk agreements were not enforced by the collective West and not enforced by Elensky. And they finally admit that Bidenopolis could have easily prevented the war in Ukraine if he had just told Elensky that Ukraine was not going to get into NATO, and Zelensky should announce that Ukraine is not going to get into NATO. But Biden did not do that. He gave Zelensky pretty much a blank check to say whatever he wanted to say. And he led Zelensky to believe that Ukraine is going to get into NATO. So Zelensky was running around talking about Ukraine entering NATO. He was talking about Ukraine getting nuclear weapons and all of these things. And this provoked Russia. That's pretty much a summary of this article from The Hill. An amazing admission from The Hill that the conflict in Ukraine was absolutely provoked. The article may not say that, but that is the point that it is making. The conflict in Ukraine was provoked going all the way back to 2014. Now, for me and for you, all of this stuff is not any surprise. If you were to read the article from The Hill, you would probably be saying, okay, I know all of this already. But think about all of the people The millions and millions of people that have been propagandized to believe that this was an unprovoked war of aggression, and Putin woke up one morning, being the evil dictator that he is, woke up one morning and said, you know what, I want to expand the Soviet empire. I want to recreate the Soviet empire. I want to recreate the Tsarist empire, or whatever. And so I'm going to invade the democracy, the shining human rights democracy of Ukraine, and go after their Churchillian president, Volodymyr Zelensky. That's what they were led to believe for the past 3 years plus. And so they read an article like this and they say, what? What are you talking about? You mean this war was provoked? You mean we really did overthrow the democratically elected government in 2014 of Yanukovych? Really? I thought that was all conspiracy theory. I thought that was all fake news. No, it was not. Look at that. Lemons. Look at all those lemons. Look at that. Just another lemon tree here in Cyprus. All right, so that's the article from The Hill. A lot of people talking about it, a lot of people sharing it. Let's do a clown world. And the Institute for the Study of War, the Newland family think tank, the Institute for the Study of War, they're saying that the Kursk operation was a complete disaster. All kinds of truths are coming out, huh? All kinds of truths. What does that tell you? That tells me that Project Ukraine is being wound down. When you have the neocon, Institute for the Study of War, calling the Kursk operation a disaster, that's got to tell you something. The American Institute for the Study of War called Kursk's venture by Kiev the most ineffective military operation in 200 years. The organization's experts conducted a comprehensive analysis of the Ukrainian armed forces operation in the Kursk region, the timing chosen, the composition and quality of troops, the supply of weapons. All elements of the operation were foretelling failure even before it began. I thought it was a game-changing operation. Isn't that what they were telling us? Weren't they telling us that this is humiliating Putin and that this is going to be used as a bargaining chip in negotiations, and this is going to divert Russian forces from the front line in Donbass? Weren't they telling us all of this stuff? That Elensky's going to march all the way to Vladivostok or whatever propaganda they were spitting out. Now, the Institute for the Study of War is saying, yeah, it was a disaster. Probably the biggest military disaster in 200 years. What else? What else for Clown World? Ukrainian propaganda outlet Meduza facing financial problems after USAID money turned off. Okay, I don't know if these reports are accurate, to be quite honest, but I think I did read another article the other day talking about Meduza and how it has some problems because of USAID money being turned off. I don't know. Most likely, yeah. A lot of publications are going to have a lot of problems now that the USAID money has stopped, especially in Ukraine, because 90% of all the media publications in Ukraine were getting money from USAID or US NGOs. So either people are going to have to donate to these publications to support their journalism, or they're going to shut down. That's the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I'm wearing in this video update. On a very windy day here in Nicosia, you will find a link to the Duran shop in the description box down below. Take care.